Have you ever felt truly invisible? Like your worth, your ideas, your very presence could be erased with a casual wave of a hand. Imagine pouring your life into something, building it piece by painstaking piece, only for those who benefit most to decide you are suddenly expendable. This is not just a story of a woman wronged. It is a testament to the power of overlooked genius, the quiet strength that resides in those deemed insignificant, and the thunderous impact they can unleash when their true value is finally seen. It begins in the gleaming, sterile halls of Omnicorp, a titan in the tech industry, a company built on innovation, much of which flowed directly from the mind of Naomi. At 42, Naomi wasn't just a corporate strategist. She was Omnicorp's very pulse, an architect of their most groundbreaking product lines. Her brilliance was quiet, her demeanor unassuming, often lost amidst the loud, self-congratulatory echoes of the all-male boardrooms. She didn't seek the spotlight, she sought solutions, crafting intricate strategies that not only predicted market shifts, but actively shaped them. Her desk was a fortress of detailed schematics and complex algorithms, her mind a ceaseless engine of foresight. Yet, despite her undeniable contributions, despite the patents held in her name, intellectual property that was the bedrock of Omnicorp's competitive edge, she remained, to many, merely a cog in the machine, a brilliant, but ultimately replaceable piece of the corporate puzzle. The air in Omnicorp's executive suite was always thick with unspoken power dynamics, a subtle but pervasive hum of masculine authority that, for years, Naomi had navigated with quiet resilience. She was a woman in a world that often valued bluster over brilliance, appearance over essence. She had learned to let her work speak for itself, believing that meritocracy would, in the end, prevail. She was a force of nature, cloaked in humility, a strategic mastermind whose quiet observations often unveiled truths others missed entirely. Naomi was not just building products, she was building the future, laying down intellectual foundations that her colleagues, wrapped in their daily administrative tasks and power plays, often failed to fully comprehend. Her deep understanding of the technological landscape, her intuitive grasp of consumer needs, and her unique ability to translate complex innovations into marketable solutions made her indispensable. Or so she thought. She saw the trends others couldn't. She envisioned the products before they were even concepts. She had a vision that transcended the quarterly reports and stock prices, a vision for true, lasting impact. But in the corporate world, sometimes vision is overshadowed by perceived threats, especially when that vision comes from an unexpected source, from someone who doesn't fit the traditional mold. Her colleagues, often envious of her effortless insights, attributed her success to luck or mere diligence rather than acknowledging the profound depth of her intellect. Her achievements, monumental as they were often diluted, reattributed, or simply downplayed in the public narrative by those who felt threatened by her quiet ascent. This subtle dismissal, the constant undermining of her intrinsic worth, had become a dull ache, a familiar companion in her journey through Omnicorp's corridors. Yet, she persevered, driven by an unwavering belief in the power of innovation and the intrinsic value of her work. She never sought validation, only the freedom to create, to innovate, to push the boundaries of what was possible. But the corporate machine, fueled by ego and short-sightedness, was about to test her resolve in a way she never imagined. They were about to make their biggest mistake, one that would redefine not just Naomi's future, but the very landscape of the industry she helped create. The day it happened, the boardroom at Omnicorp felt colder than usual, the polished mahogany table reflecting the pale, unforgiving light from above. Naomi sat at her customary spot, a meticulously prepared report open before her, ready to present the next generation of product strategies, a blueprint that would ensure Omnicorp's dominance for the next decade. Her heart pounded not with fear, but with the quiet excitement of an architect about to unveil a masterpiece. She had spent months, years, poring over data, anticipating market shifts, innovating new technologies, technologies that were, in fact, protected by patents she personally held, licensed exclusively to Omnicorp. But as the board members, all men in their tailored suits, filed in, their faces were set, unreadable. There was no usual pre-meeting chatter, no casual greetings. The air crackled with an unspoken tension, heavy and foreboding. Thomas Sterling, the CEO, a man whose smile rarely reached his eyes, cleared his throat. His gaze swept over the table, lingering for a fraction too long on Naomi before settling on the presentation screen. "Naomi," he began, his voice devoid of its usual faux warmth, "we appreciate your dedication to Omnicorp over the years. Your contributions have been significant." The word significant hung in the air, a carefully chosen understatement designed to diminish. Naomi's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. She sensed the shift, the tightening of the net around her. This wasn't a strategic review, this was an ambush. Sterling continued, his tone hardening. "However, the board has been reviewing our corporate structure, our long-term vision, and frankly, we feel it's time for a change in leadership within the strategy division. We need a fresh perspective, someone more aligned with our current direction." His words were a carefully constructed facade, designed to sound like corporate speak, but the underlying message was clear, brutal, and utterly personal. It wasn't about fresh perspective, it was about control, about ego, about pushing out a woman who had, perhaps, become too powerful, too indispensable for their comfort. They wanted to reclaim the narrative, to take credit for her genius without her inconvenient presence. Naomi's gaze swept over the faces around the table. James, who owed his last promotion directly to her, Marcus, whose entire department relied on her strategic insights, Robert, who had once praised her work as visionary. Not one of them met her eye. Their silence was a betrayal, louder than any shouted accusation. It was the ultimate corporate gaslighting, twisting her value into a reason for her dismissal. A slow, chilling realization dawned upon her. They were not just firing her, they were attempting to erase her, to diminish her legacy, to claim her brilliance as their own. Effective immediately. Sterling concluded, his voice clipped. "Your services will no longer be required. Human resources will be in touch regarding the details of your severance package." He offered a tight, dismissive nod, already turning his attention to the next item on the agenda, as if Naomi was merely a minor administrative inconvenience, easily swept aside. Her heart, which had been pounding, now felt strangely still, a cold, hard stone in her chest. She felt a profound sense of disbelief, then a surge of white-hot anger, quickly followed by a quiet, steely resolve. They saw her as disposable. They believed her power came from Omnicorp. They were profoundly, disastrously wrong. They had overlooked the true source of her strength, the intricate web of intellectual property and exclusive rights that she, Naomi, personally controlled. They had forgotten, or perhaps never even known, the foundational patents upon which Omnicorp's most profitable ventures were built, patents that carried her name, patents she held in her own right, licensed to Omnicorp, not owned by them. She stood up slowly, deliberately. The scraping of her chair against the polished floor was the only sound in the room. She didn't raise her voice, didn't plead, didn't show the shock and hurt that truly surged within her. Her face was a mask of calm, her eyes holding a depth of quiet understanding that none of them could fathom. "I understand," she said, her voice clear and steady, devoid of any tremor. She gathered her reports, her movements precise, unhurried. As she reached the door, she paused, turning back to face them one last time. Her gaze, direct and unwavering, met Sterling's end of quote. A faint, almost imperceptible flicker of a knowing smile touched her lips, a smile that held more promise of future reckoning than any threat. "You will," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, yet resonating with an undeniable power. "Come to regret this decision more than you can possibly imagine." And then, she walked out. leaving behind a silence far more profound than the one she had entered, a silence pregnant with the unacknowledged consequences of their arrogance. They had dismissed her, but they had also unleashed her. They had cast her out, but in doing so, they had unwittingly handed her the keys to their undoing. The chessboard had been reset, and Naomi, no longer bound by the rules of their game, was about to play her own. The initial shock of dismissal quickly morphed into a searing resolve. Naomi didn't dwell in self-pity. Her mind, a finely tuned instrument of strategy, immediately began sifting through the wreckage of her career at Omnicorp, not for fragments of sorrow, but for leverage. As she cleared her sparse, impersonal office, packing away a few personal items, a worn mug, a framed photo of a younger, more naive Naomi, a small, polished stone she used as a paperweight, her thoughts raced. The board had been so short-sighted, so blinded by their own hubris and the desire for unchecked control, that they had overlooked the single most critical detail: her intellectual property. Years ago, when Omnicorp was still a burgeoning startup, Naomi had insisted on a unique clause in her employment contract. It was a testament to her foresight and her quiet tenacity. Any foundational patents she developed would remain her personal property, licensed exclusively to Omnicorp for a finite period, renewable upon mutual agreement. It was an unconventional arrangement, one that the eager-to-grow Omnicorp had readily agreed to, blinded by the immediate potential of her revolutionary ideas. They had, in their scramble for market dominance, dismissed the long-term implications of this singular detail. The board, in their hasty decision to oust her, had foolishly assumed that removing Naomi meant removing her influence entirely. They believed her brilliance was synonymous with her employment. They had not considered the ironclad legal agreements, meticulously drafted, that ensured her continued ownership of the very technologies their flagship products relied upon. Those patents were the bedrock of Omnicorp's most profitable ventures, the innovative software algorithms and hardware designs that gave them their competitive edge. Without them, Omnicorp was little more than an empty shell, a brand without substance. A cold, determined smile touched Naomi's lips. They had underestimated her for too long. They had seen her as a strategist, a worker bee, but never as the queen bee, the true architect. Now, she would show them the true cost of their arrogance. Her mind, usually focused on building, now turned to dismantling. But not in a destructive, vengeful way. Rather, with the precise, surgical intent of a master strategist orchestrating a necessary correction. She saw a path forward, a complex, multi-layered strategy that would not only vindicate her but also revolutionize the industry she loved. The first step was to sever the ties completely, to ensure her exit was clean, precise. She would let the severance package play out, fulfilling her contractual obligations while quietly preparing her countermove. Her silence would be her loudest statement, her apparent capitulation, a smokescreen. The world believed she had been defeated, broken. Let them believe it. This assumption would be their undoing. She carefully packed her laptop, not the company-issued one, but her personal device, a treasure trove of her own research, designs, and the comprehensive legal documents pertaining to her patents. She would need to review every clause, every expiration date, every subtle nuance that could be used to her advantage. Her legal team, discreetly contacted, confirmed her initial assessment. The patents were undeniably hers. The licensing agreements, while ironclad, had specific clauses regarding termination of employment and the right to revoke exclusive licensing under certain conditions, conditions that were now unequivocally met. Omnicorp had broken faith, unilaterally terminating her without cause that would invalidate her rights. It was a golden ticket, a silent weapon she had always held but never considered wielding. Now, the time had come. She pictured the all-male board, smug in their perceived victory, confident that they had purged the inconvenient truth of her indispensable contributions. They would go on, conducting business as usual, perhaps even attributing her past successes to their enlightened leadership. They would be oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon, a storm of her making, carefully orchestrated, designed to rip through their carefully constructed edifice of power and privilege. Her anger was a cold, precise fire, burning away any lingering sadness or self-doubt. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. It was about exposing the rot at the core of a corporate culture that valued politics over performance, ego over ethics. And more than that, it was about proving a point that true value cannot be dismissed, cannot be erased, and that genius, no matter how quietly it operates, will always find a way to shine. She closed her office door for the last time, her head held high. The war was far from over. In fact, it had just begun. And this time, she was not playing by their rules. She was rewriting the entire game. With the legal confirmation of her patent ownership firmly in hand, Naomi wasted no time. Her mind, now unburdened by the bureaucratic shackles of Omnicorp, soared with unconstrained brilliance. She knew exactly where to strike. The tech industry, for all its innovation, was a battlefield, and Naomi had a strategic advantage that no one else possessed. Her target was Zenith Innovations, Omnicorp's fiercest competitor, a company known for its aggressive pursuit of cutting-edge technology and its willingness to take calculated risks. But approaching Zenith required finesse. She couldn't simply walk in and declare her intentions. There had to be an irresistible allure, an offer so compelling that it would shatter any initial skepticism and ignite their avarice for market dominance. She crafted a meticulously worded email, concise and devoid of emotional rhetoric, laying out a tantalizing proposition. It mentioned her previous role at Omnicorp only in passing, focusing instead on the intellectual property she controlled, the very patents that were the foundation of Omnicorp's most profitable product lines. She included just enough detail to pique their interest, hinting at an exclusive opportunity that would fundamentally shift the industry's power dynamic. The subject line was stark: Strategic Alliance Opportunity, Unlocking Future Market Dominance. It landed in the inbox of Alex Thorne, CEO of Zenith Innovations, a woman known for her sharp intellect and unconventional approach. Alex was a formidable figure in the tech world, respected for her vision and her ruthless efficiency, but also for her surprising openness to disruptive ideas. She was precisely the kind of perceptive authority figure Naomi needed. Alex's assistant initially filtered the email, almost relegating it to spam, but the direct mention of Omnicorp and Strategic Alliance caught her eye, a red flag in a sea of unsolicited proposals. She forwarded it to Alex with a note of caution, intrigued despite herself. Alex read the email late that night, a frown creasing her brow. Her initial reaction was skepticism. Naomi, the quiet strategist from Omnicorp? The very architect of some of their most formidable innovations? The idea of her reaching out, let alone offering a partnership, seemed outlandish. Corporate espionage? A trap? Alex considered all possibilities. But as she reread the carefully chosen words, a seed of curiosity took root. The way Naomi framed the intellectual property, the subtle hint of foundational patents, it resonated with something Alex had always suspected. Omnicorp's rapid growth seemed to rely heavily on a singular, uncredited source of innovation, almost too consistent for a large team. Could this Naomi be that source? It was a long shot, but the potential upside was too immense to ignore. Zenith had been struggling to close the gap with Omnicorp, constantly playing catch-up, feeling that their rival always had an invisible edge. Could Naomi be that edge? Alex decided to take the risk. She instructed her assistant to schedule a highly confidential meeting, emphasizing discretion. No one, absolutely no one, was to know about this initial contact. When Naomi received the confirmation, a flicker of triumph ignited in her eyes. The hook was set, the chess game had officially begun. The meeting was set for a private, unmarked conference room in a discreet building far from the glare of corporate eyes. Naomi arrived precisely on time, dressed not in corporate power suits, but in smart, unassuming attire that subtly emphasized her confidence rather than her former corporate identity. Alex was already there, scrutinizing Naomi as she entered, her keen eyes assessing every nuance. "Miss Thorne," Naomi offered, her voice calm and steady, extending a hand. Alex shook it firmly, her expression unreadable. "Miss Naomi, your email was intriguing. But I confess, I'm finding it hard to believe that the architect of Omnicorp's success would be seeking a partnership with its fiercest rival. And the claims about intellectual property are, to say the least, audacious." Naomi met her gaze squarely, unafraid. "My claims are not audacious, Miss Thorne. They are simply facts. My departure from Omnicorp was not voluntary, and it has severed the conditions of their exclusive licensing agreement for the core patents that underpin their entire product ecosystem. I retain full ownership of those patents." She laid out a slim, leather-bound folder on the table. Inside were meticulously organized legal documents, patent certificates, and the original licensing agreements, highlighted and annotated with damning clarity. Alex leaned forward, her skepticism slowly giving way to astonishment as she reviewed the documents. The truth of Naomi's claims was undeniable, laid bare in indisputable legal prose. This wasn't just a strategic opportunity, it was an industry-shaking revelation. Omnicorp had dismissed the very foundation of their empire. Naomi wasn't just offering a partnership. She was offering the weapon to dismantle Omnicorp's dominance and elevate Zenith to an undisputed market leader. Alex looked up, her expression transformed. A slow, predatory smile spread across her face, mirroring the quiet triumph in Naomi's eyes. This was the moment of truth. This was where an overlooked virtuoso met a perceptive authority figure, poised to rewrite the rules of the game. The meeting between Naomi and Alex Thorne, the CEO of Zenith Innovations, stretched for hours, unfolding with the intensity of a high-stakes chess match where every move promised to reshape the future. Alex, initially cautious, quickly grasped the profound implications of Naomi's proposition. This wasn't just about gaining a competitive edge. It was about outright market disruption, a strategic coup that could redefine the entire tech landscape. Naomi, for her part, articulated her vision with precision and quiet power. She didn't speak of revenge, though a deep current of righteous indignation propelled her. Instead, she focused on innovation, on the untapped potential of her patents, and on how Zenith, with its agility and forward-thinking ethos, was the ideal partner to truly unleash their power. She spoke of products that transcended current market offerings, of solutions that addressed future consumer needs, and of an ethical approach to technology that Omnicorp, in its blind pursuit of profit, had long abandoned. Alex listened, absorbed. She recognized the brilliance before her, a mind capable of seeing patterns and possibilities that others missed entirely. She saw not just the patents, but the woman behind them, a strategic genius, a hidden gem who had been brutally cast aside. Alex's own frustration with Omnicorp's stagnant, patriarchal leadership resonated deeply with Naomi's story. She knew Omnicorp's board was notorious for their insular, old-fashioned ways, clinging to past successes and dismissing dissenting voices, especially from women. "This is unprecedented, Naomi," Alex finally said, leaning back in her chair, a glint of excitement in her eyes. "To have the core intellectual property of our biggest rival essentially walk through our doors, it's a game changer, but it also means discretion is paramount. Omnicorp cannot know about this until the absolute right moment." Naomi nodded, her gaze steady. "Precisely. The element of surprise is our greatest asset. They believe they have neutralized me. Let them continue to believe that. We build in silence, we strike with precision." The strategic alliance was forged not on a whim, but on mutual respect and a shared understanding of the stakes. Alex, a woman who valued action over empty promises, recognized that Naomi wasn't merely offering patents, She was offering a blueprint for a new era of technological leadership. The terms were hammered out swiftly. Naomi would join Zenith not as an employee in the traditional sense, but as a strategic consultant with an executive-level portfolio, directly reporting to Alex. More importantly, the licensing of her patents to Zenith would be exclusive, and the financial arrangement would be heavily weighted towards performance incentives tied directly to Zenith's market share growth relative to Omnicorp. This wasn't just a job, it was a partnership of equals, a joint venture to redefine an industry. For Naomi, it was vindication, but also an opportunity to build something truly revolutionary, untainted by the toxic politics she had endured. Over the next few months, Naomi worked in the deepest shadows of Zenith. Her presence was known only to Alex and a select, trusted few within Zenith's R&D and legal teams. She operated from a secure, remote office, communicating through encrypted channels, meticulously crafting new product lines that integrated her foundational patents with Zenith's existing technological capabilities. She mentored Zenith's brightest engineers, infusing them with her unique vision, pushing them to think beyond conventional boundaries. The energy within Zenith was palpable, a quiet hum of innovation fueled by Naomi's clandestine guidance. They were building not just products, but a revolution. Meanwhile, at Omnicorp, a slow, almost imperceptible decline began. Without Naomi's foresight, without her constant stream of innovative strategies and her deep understanding of market trends, the company began to drift. Their new product launches were lackluster, rehashes of old ideas, failing to capture the market's imagination. The board, confident in their own wisdom, attributed these minor setbacks to market fluctuations or temporary headwinds, blind to the true foundational crack spreading through their empire. They boasted of their streamlined operations and cost-cutting measures, unaware that these very measures had pruned the branches that bore their most valuable fruit. Dramatic irony was at play on a grand scale. Omnicorp's public statements about their unprecedented growth and robust strategic pipeline rang hollow to those with discerning ears. Their stock, while not plummeting, showed signs of stagnation, unable to match the quiet, consistent, upward trajectory of Zenith. The board, arrogant and self-congratulatory, continued to believe they had made a brilliant move by cutting dead weight. They were so far removed from the ground-level innovation, so entrenched in their own echo chamber, that the true source of their vulnerability remained hidden in plain sight. Naomi watched from afar, a quiet smile playing on her lips, as she observed Omnicorp's slow, deliberate unraveling. Every misstep, every faltering product launch, every missed market opportunity was a testament to her essentiality, a silent confirmation of her original value. The pieces of her grand strategy were falling into place. The stage was being set for the ultimate unveiling, a public reckoning that would be witnessed by the entire industry. The Industry Expo was just months away, and Naomi, alongside Alex, was preparing to deliver the most devastating blow Omnicorp had ever seen. The storm was gathering, its epicenter a woman once dismissed, now poised to reclaim her narrative and reshape an entire industry. The annual Global Tech Innovators Expo was not just an event. It was the sacred ground where industry giants unveiled their visions, where futures were forged and reputations cemented. For Omnicorp, it was traditionally their crowning moment, a stage where they flaunted their dominance, their innovations, and their seemingly unshakable market leadership. This year, they were particularly eager to impress, keen to deflect whispers of their recent stagnation. Thomas Sterling, the CEO, strode through the expo halls with an air of practiced confidence, his all-male board members trailing dutifully behind him, a phalanx of tailored suits and self-satisfaction. They had invested heavily in their presentation, a glitzy showcase designed to reaffirm their position as the undisputed leader. They believed they held all the cards, blissfully unaware that their deck had been tampered with. Their booth was a monument to their supposed glory, adorned with towering screens displaying their latest, albeit uninspired, products. The air was thick with anticipation, a nervous energy that vibrated through the vast convention center. Omnicorp's slot was prime, positioned to dominate the expo's biggest stage. Meanwhile, Zenith Innovations, Omnicorp's longtime rival, maintained a far more understated presence. Their booth was smaller, their marketing less ostentatious, but there was an undeniable buzz, a subtle undercurrent of excitement that Omnicorp dismissed as mere wishful thinking from a perpetually second-place competitor. Alex Thorne, Zenith CEO, moved through the crowds with quiet purpose, a calm before the storm. Her eyes, however, constantly scanned the faces of Omnicorp's executives, noting their inflated confidence, their smug dismissiveness. She exchanged a brief, almost imperceptible glance with Naomi, who, unseen by Omnicorp, moved through the expo like a phantom, observing, assessing, and preparing. Naomi wasn't behind the main stage, but rather in a highly secure private room adjacent to Zenith's presentation area, meticulously overseeing the final preparations. She reviewed the complex visual sequences, the precise timing of the product reveals, and most crucially, the legal disclaimer that would flash across the screen, a subtle but devastating detail. Her appearance on stage was a closely guarded secret, known only to Alex and a handful of Zenith's senior executives who had been sworn to absolute secrecy. She watched the crowd gather for Omnicorp's presentation, a sea of eager faces, industry analysts, investors, and competitors. Her heart rate was steady, her focus absolute. This was not about personal vengeance. It was about exposing a truth, about demonstrating the intrinsic value of intellect over ego, of merit over misogyny. The tension was a palpable hum, a low thrum beneath the excited chatter. Omnicorp's presentation began with a flourish. Sterling, bathed in the glow of the spotlights, launched into a grandiose speech about Omnicorp's unwavering commitment to innovation and their visionary leadership. He introduced their latest products with theatrical flair, products that were, in truth, incremental improvements at best, lacking the true disruptive spark that had once defined Omnicorp. The audience, while polite, seemed underwhelmed. There was no collective gasp, no surge of excitement. The applause was tepid, more out of courtesy than genuine enthusiasm. The board members, watching from the front row, forced smiles, trying to project confidence, but even they could sense the lukewarm reception. The industry had come to expect more from Omnicorp. As Sterling concluded his presentation, inviting questions from the press, the energy in the room began to dissipate. It felt like an ending, not a beginning. It was then that Naomi, from her unseen vantage point, gave the signal. The time for Omnicorp's reckoning had arrived. The stage was set, not just for a product launch, but for a public downfall broadcast for all to see. The dramatic irony was almost unbearable. Omnicorp, believing they had cemented their legacy, was about to witness its spectacular unraveling, orchestrated by the very person they had so carelessly discarded. The silence that followed Sterling's final words was about to be shattered, not by applause, but by the irrefutable truth. The moment Sterling concluded Omnicorp's lackluster presentation, a palpable sense of anticlimax settled over the audience. The polite applause died quickly, replaced by a murmur of polite disappointment. It was a faint crack in Omnicorp's polished facade, but a crack nonetheless. Just as Sterling was about to open the floor for questions, the massive screens on the main stage, moments ago displaying Omnicorp's branding, suddenly flickered and changed. A bold, minimalist logo appeared, Zenith Innovations. A collective gasp swept through the expo hall. This was highly unusual. Zenith's presentation slot was hours later. Murmurs turned to confused whispers as the lights dimmed, then refocused on a new section of the stage, previously concealed. Alex Thorne walked onto the stage, her presence commanding, her eyes holding a quiet intensity that immediately captivated the room. She didn't offer platitudes or boastful claims. Her voice, calm and clear, resonated through the vast hall. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "Omnicorp has just shown you their vision of the future. At Zenith, we're here to show you the real future." A dramatic pause. Then, the screens behind her lit up with stunning, never-before-seen visuals of revolutionary products. Holographic displays emerged, integrated AI systems demonstrated seamless human interaction, and energy-efficient devices promised to redefine everyday life. The audience was mesmerized. This was not incremental improvement. This was a leap, a genuine paradigm shift. The innovations were breathtaking, so far beyond anything Omnicorp had just presented that it felt like they belonged to a different era entirely. Sterling and his board, watching from the front row, looked on in stunned disbelief. Their faces, moments ago smug, were now etched with a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. They recognized elements, subtle design philosophies, underlying technological frameworks that felt eerily familiar, yet impossibly advanced. It was as if their own future had been stolen and perfected. As Alex unveiled each groundbreaking product, she spoke with a quiet confidence that radiated undeniable authority. "These innovations," she declared, her voice ringing with conviction, "are powered by proprietary technologies, foundational patents that represent the true next generation of our industry." Then came the bombshell. As the final, most audacious product concept materialized on screen, Alex gestured to the side of the stage. "And now, I'd like to introduce the visionary mind behind these patents, the architect of this future, the driving force behind Zenith's next chapter. Please welcome Omnicorp's former chief strategist, Naomi." The name hung in the air, a silent detonation. A collective gasp rippled through the audience, a wave of shock and understanding. Naomi, the woman they had so casually dismissed, stepped onto the stage. She walked with quiet dignity, her gaze sweeping over the audience, eventually resting for a long, deliberate moment on the stunned faces of Sterling and the Omnicorp board. There was no triumphal sneer, no overt gloating, just a profound sense of calm authority. Her face was illuminated by the glow of the screens, which now displayed stark, irrefutable legal documents. Patent numbers, licensing agreements, and, unmistakably, Naomi's name as the sole owner. As the legal owner of these foundational patents, Naomi began, her voice clear and resonant, "And given Omnicorp's unilateral termination of my employment, the exclusive licensing agreement between myself and Omnicorp has been formally revoked." A hush fell over the expo hall, so absolute that the whirring of the cooling fans could be heard. Every eye was on the screens, on the damning evidence. "Effective immediately," she continued. "Omnicorp no longer possesses the legal right to utilize the core technologies that underpin many of their current product lines, including those they just presented." The implications were staggering. Omnicorp's entire competitive advantage, their market position, their very foundation, had just been publicly stripped away. Sterling's face turned ashen. The board members exchanged terrified glances, their eyes wide with dawning horror. They had not only dismissed Naomi, but they had carelessly forfeited the intellectual property that defined their existence. The public humiliation was absolute. Legal analysts in the audience furiously scribbled notes, investors frantically checked their phones, watching Omnicorp's stock ticker, already plummeting in real time. The broadcast screens, showing the expo live to millions worldwide, captured every stunned reaction, every jaw drop, every horrified realization. Naomi concluded, her voice gaining a quiet power. "Zenith Innovations, under a new, mutually beneficial licensing agreement, will now be bringing these truly revolutionary products to market. We believe in innovation, and more importantly, we believe in recognizing and valuing the brilliance that drives it." The applause that erupted then was thunderous, genuine, a wave of vindication and excitement that shook the very foundations of the expo hall. It was a standing ovation, not just for the innovations, but for the quiet woman who had turned the tables, exposing corporate arrogance and reclaiming her rightful place at the forefront of the industry. The mighty Omnicorp had fallen, not with a bang, but with the quiet, devastating precision of a woman who had simply waited for her moment to show them what true power looked like. The aftermath of Naomi's revelation at the Global Tech Innovators Expo was immediate and cataclysmic for Omnicorp. The thunderous applause for Zenith and Naomi faded into a deafening silence within Omnicorp's executive suite. The broadcast, witnessed by millions worldwide, ensured that the news spread like wildfire, igniting a financial and public relations crisis of unprecedented scale. Omnicorp's stock, already showing signs of weakness, plummeted like a stone, wiping out billions in market capitalization within hours. Investors panicked, shareholders demanded answers, and legal analysts predicted a cascade of lawsuits. The board members, still reeling from the public humiliation, faced immediate and intense scrutiny. Their arrogance, their short-sightedness, and their shocking ignorance of the very foundations of their company were laid bare for the world to see. Thomas Sterling, the CEO, became the public face of the downfall, his carefully constructed image shattered. His forced smiles at the expo gave way to frantic damage control attempts, but the truth, amplified by Naomi's precise unveiling, was undeniable. The media, hungry for a scandal of this magnitude, dissected every detail, unearthing stories of Naomi's previous contributions, her quiet brilliance, and the board's history of sidelining talent, particularly female talent. The narrative quickly shifted from a corporate blunder to a moral failing, a stark example of hubris and prejudice leading to self-destruction. Within days, Sterling was forced to resign amidst shareholder revolt. The all-male board, facing immense pressure and the threat of legal action for gross negligence, underwent a drastic overhaul, with several key members either stepping down or being forcibly removed. The cynical gatekeepers who had dismissed Naomi were now themselves dismissed, their careers in ruins, their reputations permanently tarnished. Omnicorp, once an industry titan, was left reeling, facing an uncertain future of restructuring, patent disputes, and a colossal task of rebuilding trust. Meanwhile, Naomi was hailed as a visionary, a strategic genius, and a symbol of empowerment. Her story, a modern fable of the underdog rising, resonated deeply with professionals across every industry, particularly women who had faced similar dismissals and underestimation. She became an overnight sensation, not for seeking fame, but for achieving justice through brilliant strategy. At Zenith Innovations, Naomi officially stepped into her role as Chief Innovation Officer, a title that aptly captured her impact. She transformed Zenith from a strong competitor into the undisputed market leader, guiding the company with a renewed sense of purpose and ethical innovation. Her presence attracted top talent, inspired new research initiatives, and cultivated a culture of respect for true merit, regardless of background or gender. The products she had envisioned, powered by her patents, rapidly gained market traction, establishing Zenith as the benchmark for future technology. Naomi didn't gloat over Omnicorp's demise. Her focus remained on the future, on building, on creating. Her journey from obscurity and underestimation had culminated not just in personal vindication, but in becoming a catalyst for positive change across the industry. She used her newfound platform to advocate for equitable workplaces, for valuing intellectual property, and for fostering environments where talent could thrive unhindered by bias. She proved that true power isn't about the title you hold in a boardroom, but the intellectual property you create, the vision you embody, and the unwavering belief in your own intrinsic worth. She had forced an entire industry to reevaluate its definition of leadership, its understanding of value, and its accountability for its actions. Her arc was complete, from an overlooked virtuoso to a recognized and empowered leader, not just of a company, but of an entire movement towards a more just and innovative future. Naomi's journey culminated not in the acquisition of wealth or power for their own sake, but in a profound transformation of the industry she loved and the personal vindication she so rightfully earned. She no longer operated in the shadows. Her brilliance, once hidden, now shone brightly, illuminating a path for others to follow. Under her guidance, Zenith Innovations flourished, becoming a beacon of ethical innovation and a testament to the power of a truly diverse and inclusive leadership. The toxic corporate culture that had once suffocated her at Omnicorp was replaced at Zenith by an environment that celebrated creativity, empowered its employees, and genuinely valued intellectual contributions. Naomi ensured that the lessons of her past were not merely personal anecdotes but foundational principles for Zenith's future. She championed mentorship programs for young women in STEM, established grants for independent inventors, and pushed for industry-wide reforms that prioritized merit over outdated hierarchies. Her influence extended far beyond Zenith. She became a sought-after speaker, an industry thought leader, and an inspiration to countless individuals who had felt their potential dismissed or their voices silenced. She often spoke not of her triumph, but of the importance of resilience, of knowing your own worth, and of the quiet power that resides in those who are underestimated. Omnicorp, while not entirely dissolved, was a shadow of its former self. Stripped of its foundational patents and its once dominant market position, it struggled to innovate, constantly playing catch-up, a stark reminder of the consequences of corporate arrogance and short-sightedness. Its leadership, now diversified and chastened, worked tirelessly to rebuild, often looking to Zenith's model as a benchmark for what they might one day aspire to be. The irony was not lost on the industry observers. The company that had cast out its genius now found itself learning from her success. Naomi's legacy was not just about dismantling a corrupt system, but about constructing a better one. She demonstrated that true power isn't about holding a prestigious title or being part of an exclusive club. It's about the inherent value of your ideas, your unique perspective, and your unwavering belief in your own capabilities. It's about knowing when to walk away from what diminishes you and having the courage to build something greater. Her story became a rallying cry, a reminder that the most dangerous assumption one can make is to underestimate the quiet, brilliant individual who holds the keys to the future. It's a powerful narrative about reclaiming one's narrative, about turning betrayal into triumph, and about the profound impact one person can have when they refuse to be defined by someone else's limitations. Her personal arc, from obscurity to unparalleled recognition, served as a blueprint for countless others who felt marginalized or invisible. She had not only secured her own vindication, but had paved the way for a more equitable, innovative, and respectful industry. And now, the question is for you. Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever felt your brilliance being overlooked, your value diminished by those who stand to gain from your work? This story is a powerful reminder that true worth cannot be taken away, only momentarily obscured. It's a call to look closely at those around you, especially the quiet ones, the ones in low-status roles, for they often hold the keys to untapped potential, to revolutionary ideas, and to profound moral fortitude. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded of their own hidden power. Comment below with your own experiences of being underestimated or witnessing true talent go unrecognized. Let Naomi's journey be a testament to the fact that the greatest triumphs often begin with the deepest injustices, and that the quiet ones, the underestimated ones, are often the very individuals poised to change the world. Remember, your true value is intrinsic, and it waits for no one's permission to shine. Embrace it, protect it, and unleash it.